Hi guys. So I wanted to just talk to you for a little bit to make some connections between the homework assignment you just did and what you're going to do next, and also to prepare you for the next assignment. Additionally, this is a hybrid, and there are things I would have said in class that I want to cover before you come to class since we're short on time. Okay, so there were a couple of reasons I asked you to do the things I asked you to do for your last homework assignments. One of the main reasons I asked you to do is because one of the themes that we're going to talk about a lot in this class is why is it important for society to agree on truth? So that one story you listened to of the girls who were kidnapped and their society just literally wouldn't even acknowledge that the girls had been kidnapped stops the girls from being rescued, right? And that's a very real cost of people just choosing not to believe something. And then as Neil deGrasse Tyson covers, one of the costs of misinformation, which people often call fake news now, but unreliable sources, misinformation, there's been lots of names over the years for this kind of thing. One of the costs is that in some ways American society is going backwards, has stopped advancing because we were making all these huge scientific and societal advancements in the 50s and 60s that now we're not making. For example, in the 50s and 60s, people got vaccinated. Every time a new vaccine came out, people got vaccinated for it, and we were eradicating illnesses. My mom has the little hole in her, little bump on her arm from when she got vaccinated from the smallpox, but I didn't have to get vaccinated for smallpox because smallpox has been eradicated. But so had measles, which is now back. So in some ways they were making a lot more advancements 50 years ago because every time scientists or the government or society said this is factually accurate, people agreed on that and they made a plan based on that. Okay, well, we found a cure or a vaccination for smallpox. We can produce it. Everybody can get vaccinated, and everybody showed up to get vaccinated, and then smallpox is eradicated. But if you create a vaccine today for smallpox, people would probably say, well, I don't know what that's going to cause. That's going to give me some kind of brain cancer. I don't know if I believe that it really gets rid of smallpox, and then people don't get vaccinated. And so we're not making the same kind of progress we were making, and that's a really big problem. A part of that is that people are not operating from the same basic facts. And there is certainly things that you can debate that are politics, but the facts should not be political. So one of the examples deGrasse Tyson uses that's worth rehashing is climate change. Climate change is happening whether you believe in it or not, and it's getting worse whether you believe in it or not. And there are things that we can debate, like what is the best solution for climate change, and we don't have unlimited money and we don't have unlimited time. So even if we could identify 4 possible solutions, we can't do all 4 of them. So which one should we do? And that is something that we can debate, and that is something that Congress can debate and the president can debate, and then we move forward. But if instead of debating what should we do about climate change, we're debating whether or not climate change even exists, then we're not making progress. But this is having all kinds of repercussions on all levels of society. And this is important for you to learn about in college, number one, because you are going to go to college and get a degree in something. And imagine if people in the world don't believe things related to what your career is, and it has an impact on your career and your profession. The other thing is that it's important for you to learn because the only way to stop misinformation from spreading is if people understand how dangerous it is, how to recognize it, and how not to spread it. Okay? And again, when you were in school, when you were younger, you probably learned a lot about unreliable and reliable sources without really understanding what that meant. But unreliable sources have existed since the beginning of time. But they were harder to spread when you had to print them, get somebody to read this book or this pamphlet and then believe it, and you only have a limited number of pamphlets circulating. It's a lot easier now on the internet because anybody can write anything, anybody for free, share it, and it can be shared unlimited amounts of times, and so it spreads like wildfire, and it has become really hard to solve basic issues in our society because people cannot agree on the most basic facts about those issues. And you're hearing, and the other thing is that society agrees that this is a problem, and that's why all these new vocab words are coming up, like alternative facts, right? There's no such thing as an alternative fact. It's a fact or it's false, all right? But people say, like, you have your facts and I have mine. That doesn't even make sense, right? Then there's fake news, which is used even by politicians, which is just another way of saying this is false information. And then people call real information false information when they don't like it, and it's just getting out of control. So we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about sources like library books and government websites and studies and much more academic sources in this course, but we're going to start by talking about the news because it's what you hear about the most, and it's so easy to find fake news or false news that's just an easy way to start the course, okay? And the other reason I had you do the homework assignments that you just did is to introduce you to some of the kinds of false news. So one of them is what we call clickbait. Clickbait is just meant to be opened. The person who writes clickbait might not have an investment in the issue. So maybe they're writing clickbait about immigrants, but they don't have anything against immigrants. They just want you to open their article. Because when you open their article, there's an advertisement on the side, and maybe they get like a quarter of a penny every single time someone opens the page. The person who is advertising in the corner gives them like a quarter of a penny. So their only motivation is to get you to open the article. So they're going to have an outrageous headline, and then they're going to try to shock you or make you angry so that you will share this so more people will open it. And they don't care if you believe it. They don't care if you open it and you say, man, this is BS, right? But you opened it and they made their money and they want you to share it if you can. So that's clickbait. And those people don't have horrible motivations in the sense of like, they're not trying to convince you of outrageous lies necessarily, but they just don't care about the impact of what they're doing because they want to make money. And you read an article about a guy who writes clickbait. The other kind of false information or fake news that circulates a lot is what we call satire. And satire is just a fancy word for what basically boils down to sarcastic humor. Okay, so they're writing an article and they're trying to be sarcastic. And people don't get the sarcasm, and they think this is true, this is real, right? And so when they not only might share it, but they might go through the rest of their life believing this thing that was always meant to be a joke. And then when they come to solve an issue, they're going to continue to believe this false information that was always meant to be a joke. So satire is circulating all the time. Then there's misleading information. Misleading information is actually usually factually accurate. It's just out of context or incomplete. So, for example, let's say I say person X shot person Y and person Y died. If I just told you that part, you would probably say person X sounds like a horrible person and should go to jail. I don't know what person X's problem is, but that was a bad thing to do. But then if I continue the story to say, well, before person X shot person Y had done X, Y, and Z, then you might say, well, actually, person Y was the horrible person, and, this complicates things. But if I stop the information by just telling you person X shot person Y without telling you all the things person Y did first, it's going to affect how you see the shooting, right? And so, and it's not false. Person X did shoot person Y. That is factually accurate. It's just incomplete. And it's incomplete because I want to shape what you believe about the issue. Okay, so there's a lot of misleading information that way, which a lot of people still refer to as fake news, but I like to just refer to it as misleading. It's misleading. It's trying to lead you to believe something that is not based 100% in fact, okay? And then there's what's basically propaganda, and that's when something is completely false, and it is false only because it wants to change your beliefs, your political beliefs about something. So, for example, if I don't like immigrants, and I write a fake news story about a girl who was raped and killed down the street by an illegal immigrant, just to share it so that people will feel worse about you undocumented immigrants, then that is propaganda. It didn't happen, but you might believe it now. And the only reason I wrote this completely false information is because I wanted to shape how you felt about undocumented immigrants. So there's different kinds of false information going around the internet, and that is complicating matters. And then when you want to engage with a problem, which you will do more and more at college, and then when you leave college, you're going to engage with problems, you want to have the basic facts on those problems. And it's important that you understand that everything we do in society is solving a problem. If you open a newspaper, everything in the newspaper is essentially going back to a problem that society's trying to solve. We're still at war, and we got to figure out how to fight terrorism but not be in more wars than we can handle. That's a problem that needs solving, and we can debate if we all agree on the facts. We have climate change issues and hurricanes and all kinds of things like that. How do we solve this? We have, illnesses circulating. We have mass shootings and gun violence. We have all kinds of problems that society needs to figure out what should we do about this. And we have to agree on those issues. And you probably will end up in a profession that will be working on solving one particular issue, whatever that issue is. Maybe you're an engineer who's going to work on traffic in South Florida. That's an issue. And you all have to agree on basic facts about traffic before you can solve it, right? Maybe you're going to be in the health industry and you're trying to solve the spread of STDs, and you all have to agree on basic facts on how they're being spread before you can solve it. So facts and information are really, really important to solving society's problems, and you finding those facts and knowing that they are accurate is your responsibility. No one is going to do it for you anymore, especially in this fast-paced world. So for your next assignment, for us to continue building on this, you're going to find a fake news article. Like I said, we're going to start by focusing on that, and then we'll branch out. I don't want you to find something that is so obviously fake that no one would believe this. Like Obama's a Martian. He came from outer space. Hopefully no one would believe that from the headline. I want you to find something that's a little bit harder to spot at first that it's fake news. And then I've provided you with a handout that you're going to use to identify that it is false news. And the handout I've given you is posted on Canvas, but it goes over a few things that you can do. Number one, pay attention to the name of the website or news organization that this supposedly is part of. I'm not talking about the title of the article, title of the larger website or newspaper that this supposedly belongs to. So, for example, I might be in an article about the stock market, and the news article will have a title, but maybe this is on the Washington Post website, right? So it's on the Washington Post website. It comes from the Washington Post newspaper. The article is going to say something different at the top of it. That's the title of the article. Okay, but the name of the publication, like the Washington Post, whatever, pay attention to ones that are very patriotic sounding, because they're telling you right away that this is politically motivated. So if it has like liberty, freedom, those kinds of words in the title, that is worrisome. The other thing is the truth about blank. Anybody who's telling you in the title that they have the truth probably does not have the truth, okay? So be careful with that. You can also look up your publication on Wikipedia. So, for example, to keep using the example of the Washington Post, you can actually look up the Washington Post on Wikipedia, and they'll tell you a lot of times, like, this is a false news site, or this is liberal leaning or conservative leaning, whatever. You can also check the About page. Not every website has an About page, but if it does have an About page, sometimes the About page actually says, this is a satire site, it's meant to be funny, or it'll say, this is like a really conservative site that's meant to fight, blah, 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 and then you can kind of sense like, wow, this is a really, really skewed politically site. So you can check the About page, and sometimes it will actually tell you that it is a fake news site. You can check the domain. .com, .co sites are bad sources. They're usually mirror sites. So like there might be like a real WashingtonPost.com site, but if you go to like WashingtonPost.com.co, it's a website that's pretending to be the Washington Post. So you need to be careful with the URL. You also got to be careful with really strange domain names, because legitimate sites will usually pay for a good URL name. And if the URL is like numbers and letters, then they're not even investing in that, and that's a bad sign. And so all of these red flags are just red flags. One red flag doesn't mean this is false information, but if you're getting multiple red flags, then this is more and more a sign that you need to be careful that this is not accurate, okay? Pay attention to the content. If they're trying to sell you a conspiracy theory, if they're saying another side is lying, if they're saying you're only going to find the truth there, then what they're trying to say is you can't fact check this, because anytime you fact check this, you're going to find that it's false. But you're going to find that it's false because there is a conspiracy. No. Don't listen to conspiracy theories. Don't listen to anybody who tells you that they're the only ones who have the truth. If they're the only ones that have the truth, they're the only ones who have that version of the truth, which is not accurate. Okay? If they're insulting a political party, if they're trying to make you really, really angry at a person, like they're trying to make you really angry at Donald Trump, they're trying to make you really angry at Hillary Clinton, whatever, then that's a bad sign too. And then if the major outlets are not reporting this story, then that is important too. So you can Google the information and see. So let's say you're reading a news article that says Donald Trump resigned from the presidency. You can Google, did Donald Trump resign? You can actually type the whole question in the search bar and see how many news articles are reporting that. I can tell you, because of advertisements and the way advertisements work on news articles and how much they want to get money, any newspaper, if Donald Trump resigned, every single newspaper will be reporting on it, because they would want people to click on it, open it, so that they could get the money for it too. So if he was really resigning, it would be all over the place. If you Google, did Donald Trump resign, and like barely anything comes up, then no, Donald Trump did not resign, and this is false information, okay? Related to that, there are fact-checking websites. So there's PolitiFact and factcheck.org and Snopes. These are websites that their entire purpose is to identify false information that is circulating on the internet. And some of them will just say this is false, this is true, but they'll even go over like this is partially true. This is the part that's true, this is the part that's false. So like, did Donald Trump resign? This is false. This is where this rumor started on the internet. It never happened. Or if you type something else in, sometimes they'll say, you know, this part of the story is true, but this part of the story is totally fabricated. So you can use a fact-checking website. You also can check the comments. A lot of times people will comment on news articles that are false, that this is false. You can check the quotes. Real news articles have a lot of quotes, and from reliable people. If the article you're reading has no quotes in it, like they didn't interview anybody, that's a bad sign. And also check who they're interviewing. Is it related to the article at all? And is the person saying something related to the article at all? And lastly, the images. The images are often recycled in fake articles, or they have nothing to do with the content of the articles. So all of these things are red flags, and then there's even more things you can do, but you can use this handout as a start. So your job is to find a false article on the internet that's not obviously false from the very, very beginning. Use some of these strategies to prove that it's false. Then on Canvas, you're going to post an image of your article and also explain what you did to prove that it was false. Then when we see each other in class, you need to have access to this article, okay? I don't care if it's on your computer or tablet or if you print it out, but you need to be able to pull it up and read from it in class. So make sure that you bring that so that we can start our next activity. Okay, we'll continue building on these themes, but the basic gist of things is we need to find the ways to get to a point where we quickly say that is false information or that is misleading information. And we need to get to a point where we understand why it's important as a society and as an individual to make sure that we are only absorbing things that are factually accurate. Okay, so we'll continue building on those things in class. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll see you in class.